Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome back to Global Azure live on Learn TV. This is day 2 of 3 of Global Azure, and all over the world, literally around the globe, there are lots of presentations being given right now, live streaming various topics. Could be from anywhere, could be from Africa, could be from Canada. It doesn't matter. There are so many to pick and choose from. I hope you join some of these streams and listen in and learn about Azure, because that is, after all, what it is all about. On this stream here today, we have 2 speakers with us. I'm going to start off with having a conversation with a good friend, and then later we will have a second session. I'm going to prop that up now. It's by Tim Huckabee. It's going to be about the ethical dilemma of AI, whether to save humanity or destroy it. That is going to be on in an hour. So instead, right now, we will have a nice conversation here with Dan Rosanova. Hello, Dan.
Hello, Magnus. How you doing?
I'm doing very, very well. Welcome to Global Azure on Learn TV.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, definitely our pleasure. So we are going to talk about literally what you guys have done with Azure with your product. So officially the title of the session is Offering Enterprise-Grade Services in the Azure Marketplace. So you are, let's begin with you. You're Dan. Hello, Dan. You're head of product for Confluent Cloud. That's your official title?
Yes, that's correct.
And before that, let's start there, because I'm an MVP now. You were in days of yore, you were also an MVP, correct?
In the before, yes.
Yes.
Before now, I worked in Azure, and then before that, I was an MVP.
Exactly.
For many years, actually.
Yeah, so you were an MVP, and then you joined Microsoft, and you started working with messaging with Microsoft. And so give us a background. What were you doing with Microsoft?
Yeah, so I did get into the messaging space in Microsoft, and messaging is what most of my career has been in. If you go far enough back, I did a lot of BizTalk in the past, and then other messaging things even before that, like IBM's and Tibco's messaging stuff. And so I thought the cloud in general was just exciting, because a lot of the things that make messaging so hard are just setting it up and getting started with it. And then that kind of drew me closer and closer to the same direction, which ultimately brought me to Confluent, which is about kind of moving past the original ideas of messaging and into streaming in real-time data in a more flexible and easy to use way, which then brought me back to Azure, because Confluent runs as a SaaS messaging service. So there's no infrastructure to manage, runs in all 3 clouds. But that means that you have to get started on them. And we had an opportunity a few years ago, actually, to be early into Azure's marketplace for SaaS solutions. So rather than, most of the cloud providers have had marketplaces for like VM images for a long time. That's a pretty established business.
Oh, yeah.
But it was fairly new for, then you just you spin up a VM type with that image, and that's kind of the way that transaction works.
Yeah.
But you're ultimately still running VMs, and the cloud is great, but like if you're just running VMs, you're still running machines, so you're still doing a lot of toil, a lot of work. And this exciting kind of opportunity to do a SaaS service through Azure, even though we already had an Azure service, gave us an opportunity for people to find our service very easily, for people to sign right up through their Azure account, and use it immediately. And it's been quite a journey, and there's a lot of parts for us to talk about, but it's been a really exciting opportunity and a really exciting outcome that has led us to Azure was actually the last cloud that we put our service on for reasons that predate my time. I can say that I made it a high priority as soon as I got to Confluent, but it's now the one we have the deepest integration with.
Well, maybe that was why they brought you on board. I don't know.
There were many jokes about that along the way, both at Microsoft and in my company.
I can only imagine, yes. Okay, great. Well, so let's start from the kind of beginning. I don't need to go through the whole what is Confluent in detail, but higher level for those who do not know. What is the service?
Yeah, the service is all built around Apache Kafka. Apache Kafka is one of the most successful Apache projects. It has we believe about a 70% adoption rate among the Fortune 500. So
Wow.
not all Apache projects get picked up by big corporations, and being picked up by big corporations isn't the only sign of success, right? There's many, but it is a telling sign, because not many have had that level of adoption. And Apache Kafka is a great software package, but like a lot of open source, it's got some rough edges. You have to run it. I think the popular phrase I learned at Microsoft was that it's free like a puppy, not free like a beer. And so I think it was Josh Holmes is the first person.
You have to care about it and take care of it and do
Yes,
things.
you have to nurture it
You
and
can't just
grow it.
enjoy it.
Yes, and you cry when it poops on the rug, and
Yeah.
all sorts of worry and problems. It's designed to work. It's not, it's designed to work in a variety of places because it's open source software. So making it to really work in the cloud is one thing. Making it to really work as a first, like a native service, as something that feels natural to an Azure user, is a totally other thing. But really fundamentally what Kafka is about is it's a append log pub sub type system. You produce and you consume messages, and you decouple producers from consumers. And unlike a queue where you put messages in and they get read and they go away, it is a log, so it's immutable. The messages don't go away. It's a checkpoint, so you can multi-read, non-destructive read, things like that.
And so you would put something like this obviously in your architecture to send messages between various points. And
absolutely, it's actually really popular. Kafka in general is really popular as a microservices coordination mechanism, which I didn't understand at first. I actually, from my messaging background, was like, this is stupid. Like, this doesn't make sense. And there's kind of two takeaways I took from that. One is that, one, you never argue with the market, right? It's like yelling at the rain. People are going to do what people are going to do. But as I realized the broader context, it's that most microservices are running in something like Kubernetes these days. So they themselves are kind of inherently stateless, and there's not one service. It's instances of service. It's pods of service. And to really stay kind of microservices true to that architecture, they don't want to call out to other services for their state. So,
right.
Naively, past Dan thought, okay, well, just like post a message and then the microservice gets the update. But what it really comes down to is each instance of the microservice needs an update, and you don't know how many there will be, and they'll come and go, and they might need yesterday's messages and all sorts of things. And it actually turns out that Kafka is a pretty good mechanism for distributing state between microservices, which is kind of why I think Kafka, now people do a ton of other stuff with it too, but that's kind of why software engineers, like developers, really, I think, are pushing on Kafka or using it a lot. But those people want to use it. They don't want to run it, which is a little bit different.
And now we got a visitor.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Well, that's fine. It's wonderful. So, all right. And when we talk about, you were kind of hinting towards it just a little bit now. You have implemented this as a service on Azure, which means that if I may ask, kind of under the covers question, you yourselves are then using Azure infrastructure to run this service. What can you tell us about that? What kind of services do you depend on in Azure? If Azure storage goes down, is your service okay?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a great question. So we use a lot of different internal Azure services, and there are going to be a lot of the same ones that anyone on Azure uses. For our compute layer, we're using AKS. We've been in the cloud long enough. Our cloud is 4 or 5 years old now, that we predate most of the Kubernetes services. So we actually ran our own Kubernetes in the cloud on a different cloud provider a while ago. Yes, that was not that's beneficial to us. Yeah, we don't do that anymore. We use a Kubernetes service from each of the cloud providers. So we're sitting on top of AKS. Since there is state inside of Kafka, that's its whole value proposition. We use a variety of different storage. So some is going to be disk-based storage, some is going to be object-based storage. And that is a lot of the kind of things we had to change with Kafka to make it really more cloud native. Is just loading up a VM with a bunch of disks isn't really cloud native.
It's not cloud native.
Yeah. So decoupling the storage and compute at a real fundamental level was something we spent a lot of time on. So the kind of answer to your query, if Azure storage goes down, like if disks are, if blob storage is down, our service will still work because it's using a different type of storage for short-term storage. But if you're storing a petabyte of data, and you can, that you won't be able to get the whole petabyte if blob storage in that region is down.
Right.
But you'll be able to write new and read new. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, that's the interesting part here. I think to do something cloud natively without using, under the cover it's a VM anyway, right? You as a consumer buy it as a service, but yeah, we're still running our software on a VM. I mean, how is that cloud? It's not.
Exactly, and I think the cloud native thing extends beyond that, even to how you purchase and acquire and get started with services.
Right.
To exactly that. If I'm showing you a VM, that's obviously not like we try to target being software as a service versus platform as a service or infrastructure as a service.
Yeah.
If I'm showing you a VM, that's not really software as a service.
No.
If you're having to manage it, it's definitely not. And even if I'm managing it, it's really not. So we're really trying to up level across the stack, including how you find and get started, which is kind of like what the most exciting stuff in the Azure marketplace for us has been.
Right. So I don't know how, maybe you know from your time at Microsoft, but there are a couple of other services in the cloud that are offered this way. Like, for example, Microsoft adopted, because the whole industry said, we're going to have Redis cache. Microsoft tried to make, 3 or 4 different cache implementations, and none of them really stuck because the market still kept saying, hey, we want Redis cache. So then, finally Microsoft said, okay, fine, we'll give you Redis cache as a service. So you're saying, is your offering similar to that? I don't know how they implement Redis cache, by the way.
But. Yeah, I'd say fairly similar. There's a whole slew of us in our space. Databricks, Snowflake, Redis, Elastic. That people want that thing because, so for instance, there's no one in the world with more experience with Kafka than the people at Confluent. Confluent was started by the people who founded Kafka.
Right.
And then the other kind of so exactly, and this was I think a very insightful move by Microsoft, is to say, rather than we'll have a Me Too service, we'll have some services that we do ourselves, but we'll have others that we invite partners in to do. And what's interesting is all of the ones in our cohort, they're not really direct head-to-head competitors with Azure services, especially because as we exist on this kind of SaaS level rather than a PaaS, like Microsoft's pretty focused on IaaS and PaaS, and they're pretty good at it in Azure. And so if you're an Azure person, those are great tools. But kind of the higher level up that you get from that, if you're a Kafka person or an open source developer who has to deal with Kafka, there's going to be some learning curve to those services, whereas something like Redis as a service is going to be more natural to you, or Kafka as a service. And the kind of higher level abstraction just makes it easier to work with.
It just makes it easier, because you were saying that people wants that, and let's qualify people. People are people that want to consume, that are technical people that want to consume this service. They want the features of this service. They want to send a bunch of messages, right? To oversimplify, that's what they want. What they don't need to do, or need to have to do, is manage a cluster of servers, and do backups of them and maintain them and do all kinds of things. Technically, they could do that. They could take Apache Kafka, run up a bunch of VMs, deploy it, install the whole thing and run it, and then maintain it themselves. No one's preventing you from doing that. Go ahead, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you and I could get together next week and build a car together.
Yeah, exactly.
We could. I don't know if I'd drive that anywhere, but
it doesn't mean it's a good idea. And that's exactly the point, right? Where if we were to manage somehow to build a car, or set up Apache Kafka, and then we'd ask some other people to do the same, and some other people to do the same. In the end, hopefully, for those of us that succeeded roughly, we'd have solutions that look kind of similar. And so then exactly what you are doing and what is being done when these higher level services kind of come about is that you just make one implementation that works with the cloud nativity. You can acquire it as a service. You can self onboard yourself and run it, and then it just works, and you don't have to worry about how it works as the consumer. It doesn't matter to you.
Yeah, exactly. We actually try to abstract away all the infrastructure details so that people don't have to worry about them or think about them. Like, you never have to think about how much disk space do I have on my brokers. Like, that's not a
It's not a
thing
thing.
we want you to have to think about. And we've spent a lot of effort to build an abstraction that's consistent across cloud providers.
Yeah.
Just because I know, so for me personally, back when I was in Azure, I heard people talk about multi-cloud, and I thought they were crazy. I was like, you're never going to run the same application on two different cloud providers. And I think that's largely, I mean, if you're not talking about something like Kafka then, or infrastructure application, then that's probably largely true. But what I've seen in the last like 5 years is that a lot of companies are multi-cloud. And there's two kind of drivers for it. One is they run like best of breed things in different clouds. And then the other is happenstance. Like, mergers and acquisitions cause people to buy a subsidiary that runs on AWS. And there's not a lot of business benefit to moving like a team of people that knows Azure or AWS is not fully fungible. It's like I thought it would be easier to be multi-cloud. I moved to a place where I am, and it's not like twice as hard. It's like 10 times as hard. So everything works differently. And so it doesn't really pay to make a AWS or a Google based subsidiary transition its infrastructure as a service to Azure. If you're going to keep it for a long time, it might. But so what ends up happening is through M&A, and then kind of through just, hey, this vendor's product only runs on that cloud, which not everyone is multi-cloud. People end up with lots of cloud footprint. And so we wanted to give, since we're kind of a connectivity, data mesh sort of fabric thing, we wanted to give people a consistent experience across cloud providers. Conveniently, that, I mean, I had a lot of hand involved in that. So we made it in a way that was, I think, feels very natural to Azure users. It maybe feels a little less natural to Amazon users at first, but it is consistent across all. So you won't even really know which one you're using other than kind of how you got into it, I guess.
And that's pretty cool, because you don't actually at all have a stake in how much Azure is being consumed. You only care about how much people are consuming your service. So if someone were to actually migrate an application from one cloud to another and continue using your service on the other cloud, it's no skin off your back. It's the same.
That's true. And what I would say, though, is that I don't see a lot of people migrate other than from on-prem to cloud. I see that happen a lot.
Yes.
But what I do see is us used as a conduit between clouds, because that's this is the funniest part for like all of the kind of native service, all of the first party services in each of the cloud providers. Well, okay, I have this subsidiary running on AWS. How do I use that? You don't, Cosmos DB doesn't run in AWS.
No,
so
exactly.
you need some sort of bridge to do that. And we get used a lot in that space. And since we have an actual legitimate, like, on-prem, we actually started on-prem. Our CEO realized that it would take so long to get a cloud up and running that we couldn't wait as a company. So we've shipped our first thing not in the cloud. But that's actually given us an ability to say, okay, we have a very good non-cloud thing. It's linkable to our cloud thing. And then our different cloud things are linkable to each other. So it's better to be lucky than good sometimes. And I don't know which one that was, but like, we ended up in a good place. So
yeah, definitely. And that really helps. I assume your customers to interconnect things, that you are just there in all of the relevant places, and then they can choose to use your service if they want to talk across those bubbles that are the different clouds and on-prem.
Yeah, and then we actually spend a lot of effort to integrate to the services within each of the clouds. So we have in the Apache Kafka world, there's this concept of connectors. It's a connector framework. It's like on and off ramps for Kafka, because not everything speaks Kafka. So there's hundreds of connectors out there for different software and SaaS products, and we built connectors for most of the Azure core services. So
Yeah.
if you want to get right from Apache Kafka into Cosmos DB, that's like a point and click thing, or into SQL Server. Or if you want to pull SQL Server CDC logs and turn them into a stream and then do processing on them and split them and send some to Cosmos and some to blob storage and some somewhere else, that all works. Or if you want to take data off of an event hub and put it into Kafka for people who want to push it to, maybe you have event hub data and people want to process it in AWS. That's something that we spend a lot of time making sure that we're a good kind of interlock with the native services of each of the cloud providers.
Yeah.
And that's probably the most developed in Azure because like AAD is something that's not an option with Azure, but it also, I can say with a lot of multi-cloud experience now, pretty much everyone uses it. Even people running on AWS, even enterprises running on AWS are using AAD for identity.
Yeah.
And even people who don't really like Microsoft begrudgingly admit to me that AAD is like the best identity solution in the world.
Yeah.
And for us, we have native AAD integration through the marketplace. If we didn't in the past, that's what the marketplace gave us most recently. Was now if you go to Confluent's marketplace offering and you sign up, like there's no more user creation. There's no setting a password. It's using your AAD credential to flow right into our product experience. The billing is integrated with your Azure account. So it's billing to your Azure account, not to us. So no payment method, no identity management. You're managing your identities through AAD. It's a pretty fluid experience and really easy.
Yeah. I can imagine that. That sounds really cool. I was thinking about now we have Confluent and it's running in Azure as a service. You can use it. So let's then start talking about how to get it, because this session was pegged as talking about the marketplace and various things, right? So let's pivot to that. You have chosen to, I guess, or I don't know if that was much of a choice to you. Maybe that was handed to you by Microsoft saying, hey, you shall be in the marketplace. But you are in the marketplace. You're in the Azure marketplace. So someone who wants to get your service picks it up on the marketplace, right?
Yeah, and actually, you can type in Confluent within the Azure portal, and our service, our marketplace offering, shows up there, and you can create it right from there.
That's true. It does in the search box, or you can just find the service through there. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so tell us about that kind of a journey. Was it difficult to put the service on the marketplace, and are there many hoops to jump through?
So no, it wasn't actually difficult, except that the marketplaces have evolved in the time we've been using it. So in a few years ago, the idea of the SaaS service thing, we were eager to be one of the first to jump on that wave into Azure's marketplace. But Azure's marketplace capabilities have expanded a lot in that time. But that's kind of meant that then we had like legacy marketplace contracts and new marketplace contracts. So there's all this versioning and all this stuff that goes on in the background. The core integration itself, it's a small team for us. And it's the same team actually that does the marketplaces for all three cloud providers. But we've had, I'd say, the best partnership from Azure, from their side on the marketplace, and which is strengthened then by a strategic partnership we signed last quarter with Microsoft that is part the marketplace stuff, part other stuff, part go-to-market type stuff, and which I think is a result of our success in the marketplace. It's like Microsoft's a little picky about who they necessarily want to partner with. You know, it's like you and I couldn't just start a company tomorrow and show up, and Microsoft's gonna be like, "Yeah, come on, we'll give you everything you want." Oh, you might be able to. I don't know if I'd get that greedy, but Microsoft is very metrics driven, so they're very aware of success. And so when they saw how well we were doing, they invited us to be even closer partners. And now, I mean, there's a weekly sync between my engineering team that does marketplace and our Microsoft team, and anything like, hey, yes, we occasionally have challenges or problems, or what the biggest problems tend to be is people want to transact in new and different ways. And so then we have to think, okay, how are we going to build this thing so it's seamless to our customers? And it's a teamwork cooperation thing, but it works really well. And then the big kind of benefits of it are mutual to us, because, like I said, you can just find the product and try it and use it, and you're just paying for what you use. You can also do more kind of exotic purchase contract stuff that's like an enterprise agreement,
Oh,
which you wouldn't really necessarily, I wouldn't do if I was kicking the tires on something. It's like how one business buys from another. But the contracting approach from the marketplace is really cool because it's pretty much blessed fixed legal language that all the providers like us use. And it just makes it a lot easier to get through a purchasing thing. That's one thing I took for granted working in Microsoft, was how much work and back and forth and difficulty there is in the legal aspects of buying software and services for most companies. And so anything that streamlines that is a net benefit, I think, both for the provider and for the consumer.
so you're saying as a marketplace owner, Microsoft is making your life easier than helping you out?
Yeah, it's making it a ton easier. And one, on the legal thing, that's for sure. The discoverability thing is huge as well. I used to know the number when I worked in Azure, but there's a lot of eyes looking at the Azure portal every day. I mean, and some of them now see us. And then it also helps because people sign very large agreements with Microsoft. So there's a large captive pool of prepaid, usually revenue or contracted dollars that they're going to spend. And since it's pretty much everyone's whole cloud running on Azure, that's a big amount. And then when they want a little bit of Kafka, it's a rounding error, and they can just dip into that to be like, okay, well, this draws from my enterprise agreement. There's no new legal framework that we have to get into, or transactional framework for exchanging money. And so that actually works really well too. So this has been a huge benefit for us.
That's really good to know, because that is you're not small by any means. You're pretty big. Maybe small by comparison to Microsoft still, but you're pretty big. So if someone starts smaller, and I guess the thing would be that, we built our software and now we have a VM for that, and we can surface that image in the marketplace, like you alluded to before. Like there's tons of those, lots and lots and lots of those companies that built some software somewhere and now they're offering it. For any such company, small company maybe starting up, it would be beneficial to be in the marketplace, you're saying?
Absolutely. Especially if I was going to target like what would traditionally have been called enterprise customers, so kind of business customers, I'd probably go marketplace first.
Yeah, because you don't have to have your own. You don't have to have your own agreement or contract or deal with this customer, because that's just really messy.
Yeah. I don't know if you could go forever just marketplace, but you could certainly do it first and get started a lot easier with a lot less pain, and find if you have product market fit, earlier, and figure out, is this worth doing more of? Especially because I cannot say enough about how much of the challenge it takes away from the, hey, how are you going to pay me? Oh, you want to give me a credit card? No one wants to give you a credit card, right? Especially like a lot of companies, people don't. I actually worked at Confluent almost 3 years. I don't have a company credit card. So I can't give you a company credit card. I'd have to use my personal one. And so it just makes a lot of it simple, very simple.
Of course. And for you guys, has the marketplace kind of opened up any other additional commercial opportunities, or it's more that the transaction piece, or is there any other commercial opportunity that you have received from being in the marketplace?
Yeah, there are. And then I think so. The commercial opportunities are what are kind of the flexible transactional terms that the marketplace is giving us. Some of the non-commercial stuff has been some of the most interesting stuff, to be quite honest. Like we are in a small group of people that actually has a resource provider in Azure. So if everything in Azure has a resource provider. Microsoft.storage, Microsoft.web, Microsoft.service bus. There is a Microsoft.confluent resource provider. And so if you do the AZ show, AZ RP show, you can see the resource providers. And that works only really because we did this because of the marketplace, and it's actually Azure's marketplace team pushed us to do this, which I'm very happy about. Because of that marketplace experience and the integrated AAD experience, now we have a resource provider that's also integrated, because I did not appreciate, coming from Azure, I didn't appreciate how, I took for granted Resource Manager and like how Azure's Resource Manager works. The other clouds don't have that. So like in AWS in particular, like you don't have that. So it's a bunch of, like, you pretty much need to use Terraform or something like Terraform.
Right.
And we have a Terraform provider, but it also is a lot more native and comfortable, I think, to a lot of people to just say, well, I'm going to use the thing that Azure uses, which is the Resource Manager. So the commercials are cool. The non-commercials are really cool. The identity integration to me is just amazing, because like back to how powerful AAD is, if you grant a user access to our product, you can actually go into Azure Active Directory and put IP restrictions on where that user can be when they get their token for logging into us. So, and it's like, oh, well, now Magnus can't log into Confluent Cloud unless he's in his home country. And like, we got that for free. Like we didn't, I guess it's not free. We had to do some identity integration, but it's identity integration with the biggest identity provider in the world. So boohoo. But like, we don't have to build that capability into our service now. We just get it from AAD, and people want to manage that stuff in a central way anyway. Just like people actually, back to the commercials, want to manage their bills in a central way. Like they don't, it's kind of funny. The same, there's some shared mindsets, like the same mindset the commercial people have that we probably interact as tech people, we probably interact with the least, are actually quite similar to the same mindsets that security people have, which we interact with more, which actually get similar to how tech people are. Is I want my stuff in some place where I can understand and manage it all. And my stuff changes. For the accountants, it's the bills. For the security people, it's the access controls. And for, engineers and stuff, it's the bits. So it's the same mindset. It's just shifted, and being through the marketplace has helped us hit all three of those really well and meet customers where they are.
Perfect. And then that you transitioned so nicely into the resource provider, because that's literally the next thing I wanted to talk about. First of all, let's zoom out just briefly for people who do not even know what you're talking about right now. You go, well, a lot of people go into, they maybe use PowerShell to create instances of resources in Azure, or maybe they use the Azure portal even to do so. But under the covers, if you want to create anything in the cloud, in Azure cloud at all, you have to go through the resource management endpoint. That's the one thing that everybody must do. And so when you're creating a VM or a storage account or an instance of your service, doesn't matter, it still goes through that point, right? Go ahead.
Absolutely. And this is, I actually started in Azure before this whole thing existed.
Yes.
And it was a really advanced idea and a bold idea, because it's not how the other cloud providers work. And before this, before the portal we know and love now in Azure, the previous, I'll just say stuff that was there. There was no central entry point for management.
That's right.
It was kind of a hodgepodge. And years ago, Microsoft, long ago on land far away, it's actually like 30 miles that way, but from out my window, but like maybe 2013, 2014, Microsoft decided to change that, decided, hey, we need a better model for this. And they created that model that still exists today and is the center for how everything is deployed within Azure, which is ultimately a eventual consistency workflow. So
So if your business is to sell your software that you built running on a VM in Azure in the marketplace, then you don't need to have your own resource provider, because you'll be using the VM resource provider that Microsoft built. And then you'll install your software on that VM image, and people will consume that and give you money. However, you guys went further, right? You went all the way. You created your own resource provider. So you have yours. So tell us, more about that, because what does it mean to have a resource provider to a company? Why would one have one?
Yeah, the kind of big advantages it's given us, other than forcing that identity integration I talked about, and the kind of explorability and ability to just look in the portal and create a Confluent organization, is that it also then gives us a presence within the Azure portal. So if you create a Confluent organization in the Azure portal,
Yeah.
you'll see it there in the resource group that you chose to create it in,
Yeah.
just like any other service.
Any
And
other resource? Yeah.
yes, and you can see it, you can manage some of it. We're still building out the management pieces, but that's actually a kind of a block. That's a delay on our side, not a delay on Microsoft's side. They've been very patient with us for that. It's our first time doing this. So we're, it's a lot of kind of new stuff for us from an identity flow standpoint and from a what is this going to look like? And so today, when you go into that portal, you'll see that part of the Azure portal, I should say. You'll see some basic data about your Confluent organization, and then you'll see a link to go into our UI. But what we're building out is kind of a deeper integration than that. And like our UI will always be more specialized for what we do, which is data in motion. It's a very, there's 200 services in Azure. We're only like 6. We're the just the things that focus on data in motion. But we design them all to work very closely together. So you'll always be able to do management through the Azure portal, but there's going to be some kind of shiny, cool data tracing things that won't surface in the Azure portal. You'll have to come into our portal or use a direct API from us if you want the graph for them. But from kind of an operator standpoint, you can do all the things without coming to our portal, without leaving Azure.
Yeah, and that's pretty cool. And so the Azure Management Endpoint is an HTTP REST-based API. And this is the thing that you mentioned, that you put your own access control on. So all the actions, all the REST-based actions you could make on your service, they go through that endpoint, and those you can put access control on to allow your users fine-grained control of who can do what with which. That's your point.
Absolutely, and actually, this is an interesting one because what my experience tells me that the Microsoft users are probably, because AAD is used for so many things beyond Azure, that
All
the
the
Azure
things?
users, yeah, exactly. If you're using Office, you're using it. The Azure users tend to be the most aware of the things they can control and restrict through AAD. So you can prevent people from purchasing, from creating a marketplace resource through AAD. That's off by default, but a lot of people know or think to turn it on by default globally. And then the same controls can extend down, to individual operations on the resource provider through RBAC in Azure. And so, you can say, hey, Dan cannot create marketplace organizations at all. Magnus can create Confluent Cloud Marketplace, but he can't create Elastic Marketplace. So like there's a lot of controls there. In the other cloud providers, people are kind of less sophisticated with some of this stuff, so it's kind of always open all the time. But in Azure, if you go to create our product and our service, and something seems to go wrong right when you're creating it there, it's probably because someone has locked down access, which is, talk to them about it. It's someone in your organization. Their errors tend to be fairly clear. They used to not be clear. And that's something we worked with Microsoft on, is the surfacing that, hey, you don't have the permissions to ultimately purchase this thing, because you're kind of purchasing something, and it's the same as spinning up like a database instance. Well, you're purchasing something when you do that. I mean, you're going to be paying for it while it's running, but it's a good you can control that through the resource manager as well. So that's like a big advantage that I think Azure has, especially. No, I'm not going to say that statement. I don't want to make enemies with another cloud provider. So
no, that's fine. Let's not go there. But I do love also the resource provider model. I believe that the former model was more like, I think it was more called Azure Service Model, or maybe that was something they invented after the fact. But when they created the new one, Azure Resource Model Manager, so Azure Resource Manager, ARM, right? The ARM model. That's when they started building these resource providers, so that that then extends to kind of infinity and beyond, right? You could write any number of resource providers for the platform.
Yeah, and so amazingly, and hopefully I'm not upsetting any of the people at Microsoft when I say this, amazingly, like they designed Resource Manager to do this like a decade ago. It was always designed from the beginning to have external parties have resource managers. It just took a long time to kind of get the business and everything else together.
Well, look at you
But
now. Right? Here's Confluent doing their thing in Azure as a service, and Marketplace and everything kind of, well, just works maybe as a stretch, but but I mean,
it works a lot easier since there was a place for it to slot into. And I think it reflects a lot of Azure's been really good about looking down the road and seeing, well, what's not just, it's very tempting for all of us in kind of the modern kind of tech business to look 3 months, 6 months, 12 months down the road. To look 5 or 10 years down the road in the tech industry is really hard. And this is a place, I think it's funny because the things that provider creates, like the stuff behind the scenes, people complain about because it's very verbose. Like if you ever export the ARM template for the stuff you built in Azure, people don't really like that, but the thing works well and is designed well. Just because the human interface isn't so good, I'm not as concerned about. But like, there's other things that have made the human interface better, but the technical capability, the technical interface is fantastic.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So you now refer to the ARM template. That's the payload, the body of the request that you make to the resource to the endpoint, right? So you send a little description of what would you like your service to be like or look like, and that payload, that body, is the ARM template. So again, everybody who wants to talk to Azure, manage resources in Azure, have to go this route. Even you have a provider for your service in Terraform. So one could use Terraform to deploy your service in Azure, or consume it, or instantiate it, and manage it for that matter. And the same then with you can also do it with writing an ARM template, or use the newer version of that, the domain specific language, the bicep version of that. It doesn't matter which. You can use all these, and you have command line versions as well, PowerShell and stuff.
Yeah, so that's kind of the resource manager model in Microsoft drives such goodness that it's the unsung hero of the Azure cloud, in my opinion. I should have thanked these people when I still worked there. That everything you see in the portal is a resource manager. It is a resource manager. Everything you see through the CLI and the PowerShell is also and the Terraform is also the same thing from that resource manager. And basically what that is there's an HTTP spec with a Swagger, and then all of those things, I mean, not the portal, but the other things are auto-gen from it. And there's a lot of work to polish the rough edges of auto-gen code, but like a lot of it's done for free because it's going from Swagger into the CLI, and it's a consistent experience for all. And that consistency, I think, is what's amazing. And Azure has been very good with is there's nothing in the portal you can't do through CLI, and there's nothing in the CLI you can't do through PowerShell, and there's nothing in PowerShell you can't do through Terraform. So it's a really consistent experience, no matter how you choose to interact with it. And I think Microsoft was the leader of that concept in all of the cloud.
I would definitely agree. I mean, if you wanted to, you can always, it's always completely possible to drop down to actually making an HTTP request with a REST-based, request to an HTTP endpoint, and put slap an authentication token on there that you have previously had to go and fetch from the AD, and then craft your own body of the message there to make sure that it follows the expected input to the cloud. You can do that manually if you wanted to. Drop all the way down and do it that way. But of course, what we are looking for is much higher level experiences here, right?
Yeah, I mean, people used to write assembler code, right?
Yeah.
So, and you don't do that anymore. You use higher level languages, and they're getting higher level all the time. So yes, well, it's all there. And assembler code is still there. Every modern language we write in, you can read the assembler for, but like you generally don't want to do that anymore. So you want to use the right modality for your persona, the right modality for how you like to work.
So who would build a resource provider? Who's a good target? Like if you have a service, if you're doing so, if you're not what's your advice? Who would be doing this? What's the telltale signs of, "Ooh, we might need a resource provider"?
Yeah, I would first and foremost make sure that you're going to be successful on Azure. You can be in the marketplace without a resource provider. You kind of have to be invited to make the resource provider with Microsoft. So start you can still do a SaaS service without a resource provider. And for some, like if it's like I don't know, like a human focused service, not a machine focused service, then you probably don't even need a resource provider. Like if it's a travel booking service you're going to make with a UI, you might not need one.
No.
So I'd start that way. Who would do it? Generally speaking, I think it's going to be SaaS or PaaS providers who want to run something on top of Azure. And again, that's not going to be your first foray into your product. Most people aren't well funded enough to start at step 7. You gotta start at step 1 and work your way up. And when you get there, and when you've established product market fit, and you feel good about this, and Microsoft feels good about this, then it's a good thing to look into.
Right.
But we started actually with the VM model years ago, and actually had a lot of success with that. But this just kind of fits our, since we're a SaaS service, the resource provider model and the the deeply integrated model fits us well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so starting from like step 1, have a great idea, right? And then build some software and start getting customers to actually buy your thing. And is it any good? Now you're ready to maybe offer it to a lot of people on a marketplace where people can just acquire it from you with much more automation, and that would be an Azure marketplace play then.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And get your experience down, get going, and start doing the thing, and then as you get gradually more involved, and your relationship with Microsoft matures, and maybe if you are, like you're saying, offering a PaaS or a SaaS thing that some other company would use to build something further, then you can consider making a resource provider full on, like you have done.
Yeah, I'd say the marketplace and all of the partnership and help from Microsoft isn't going to help a bad product succeed. It's going to help a good product succeed more. So at the beginning, you really have to start at the beginning, and that's to me, in my mind, is like wearing my product manager hat, my head of product hat. That is identifying which customers you're going to serve with what services at what price point. You need to do those things before you decide to get into the marketplace. Like the marketplace isn't a magic money button. It's a hey, I have something people want, how do I get it to them faster button. Keep with the basics.
Right. And through the service that you offer, in your case, your service is then billed per usage, based on how much do they actually use your service, and how many messages and so forth.
Yeah, so we have a few different models. We have different tiers of our service. Our basic tier is a scale to 0 service. So if you're not sending and reading or storing data, then you pay nothing. The storing, you set your own retention, so that can be controlled. And it'll go to 100 megabytes a second. So you can spike from 0 to 100 and back down, and it's all hunky-dory. It's all very easy. We do have other tiers of our product that'll go do gigabytes per second. Those will have some component of fixed cost, so we're not bleeding money. But they're also variable. So there's a fixed base with variable usage on top of it. So the majority of billing out of our services are usage based. And so that, use more, pay more, use less, pay less.
Yeah. So when that you have consumed your service a lot for a long time, and you see that this is a consistent thing, then you would consider upgrading to those higher tiers that gives you a lot of security, right? I mean, that this thing is not going to go down like ever, right?
Yeah, exactly. For us, our kind of product model is not to limit so much on scale as to limit so much on features. If I'm hosting my cat video site, I don't really need, advanced security features for it. I've never seen cat videos that require advanced security features.
These
How's
dog
that?
videos for you, Dan.
Yes, that's true. I'm deathly allergic to cats. So I shouldn't have said that on something being broadcast. Someone's going to come run and throw a hairball at me sometime.
Oh,
So then you step up into kind of security features, and not just security, but other types of features, which are kind of higher value add, because just producing consumer message isn't necessarily super high value. Yes, there's a ton of value to it being easy and available and stuff like that. But yeah, you step up through the product tiers. But anyone who's the way I've designed the product and we have here collectively at Confluent is that you should kick the tires on the thing that costs very little, and see if you like it, and then just upgrade it to if you want.
Yeah, and that's a wonderful thing about the cloud, because it's like democratized, right? You don't have to care how the thing actually works. You just want to use that service, and when you start, like you say, kicking the tires, it should be easy to get started. It should be cheap to scale to zero. If I don't use it a day, I'm not in the office, then it's not costing me anything at all. And then I come into the office and I do some work and I send some messages, probably small amounts. I'm just developing and testing things. And I'm just paying for an itty bitty little thing. When I'm a huge success, when I'm a raging success on the internet and everybody wants to buy my service, there's so many messages being sent. Well, then I can afford to pay you guys more. Right.
Well, yes. And actually, so the ideal model for us is you've put us in a place where we are supporting whatever makes you money, so that as that thing scales, we scale with you, and you don't even have to think about it. And if you are making less money, it scales down too. Because if we're not, if we're an increasing cost for you, disproportionate to the value you get from us, we're not going to be around long.
Right.
So we want to make sure we're valuable at any scale and that we're helping you kind of achieve what you want. But the whole developer focus, our company started obsessed with developers, perhaps too much sometimes. Like a lot of our collateral is, if you're a technical member of this audience, a lot of our collateral is going to be right up your alley. But if our idea there, even still today, and part of why we like the marketplace so much, is any developer on an Azure platform can kick the tires and see what they think, and they don't have to make a big commitment. They don't have to go through all this rigmarole just to try things. And it's very different than, we're old enough to remember when getting software that you needed to do something took a year, and then you were stuck with it. And then it's like, hey, there's this amazing thing. If we just give some money, we can try it and see if it does what we want. Now I want people can try today. They can try for 20 minutes, decide they like this or don't, and move on and try something else. And that kind of it makes it a lot easier to try more tools and find what's the right tool for you, which makes people more successful in the long run.
Yeah, definitely. Starting up a business today is definitely massively different compared to starting up a business, 15 years ago, like predate the cloud, right? Back then it would be like, oh, we need to find an investor to buy some actual hardware and start putting it together, right? Installing an OS and things. We're not there anymore, are we?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Now we literally, it could be two people in a garage and they can have, a globally deployed social media platform in a week or two.
And they could compete with the giants technically, because it's right there. So that's, I think, was a pretty golden piece of advice that you gave there. Let's pull that out again. You said that you need to consume these services in the platform, including yours, in such a way that when you make little money, it's the platform that you run on is going to cost you a little money as well. And when you make a lot of money, then, well, you can start paying more for the services that you use. So if you can build your business on a model like that, on a pay-per-use consumption basis, then you have it's a nice thing to build that on a cloud platform today with software as a service things, right?
Absolutely, and that's what's so different now. That's what makes it so easy to try different ideas and see what's going to have product market fit. Is that as you said it perfectly, in the past we had to, the first 6 months was, or year, was racking and stacking and installing and all this stuff, and all that stuff today you could do that today, literally today. We could do it right now and be done before it's evening time, my time. But if you model it in a way, if you build in a way, why serverless is so popular is because you can just pay when you're actually making money, basically, or providing service, I should say. Making money is a different challenge, which hopefully your monetization model aligns with your technology model. But
that'd be nice.
Having those things scale like from a usage point rather than a fixed point. You know, saying, hey, I have a floor, I have to fill a bucket, and then I'll buy another bucket and I'll fill that bucket. That's a lot more just work to keep filling the buckets, versus something like a serverless model, which is just, hey, it just goes up, it goes down. Even if my unit cost is sometimes a little bit higher, my total cost is much lower because the variability is built into it.
Definitely. Perfect. All right. So we are coming up towards the end. It's been a very, very interesting hour to spend here with you, Dan. I know also you have to move on to your next appointment for the day. I appreciate you giving us some time here. I also see here in the background, we're not going to bring him on just yet, but we have the next speaker coming on. And so just as the final couple of minutes here, what is the next thing on the roadmap for you guys, for your product, for your service in Azure? What are we going to get? What is the next cool thing?
Yeah, I would keep an eye out on the portal, on the Azure portal, for our product experience. That's going to get developed out a lot more and become much more a much cooler experience, a much more detailed experience than it is now. So we're really excited about that, and we're working.
One of your areas of investment right now. Anything new with the features? Any new any new tiers, or any new other features coming in?
Now I have to reflect that we're a publicly traded company, and it's a lot harder for me to be as open as I used to be. So
fair enough. Yeah. So I was just thinking if there's anything on your public roadmap that you can disclose, or share, that is already out there.
I would keep an eye out for about 2 or 3 more weeks, and there will be. Yeah.
2 or 3 more weeks. That's so exciting. So we're going to bring on our next speaker now, so you can say hi, and then we'll take you off in a minute. But you know this man. Here's Tim Huckabee.
Hi, Dan. Hi, Magnus.
Hey, Tim. Nice of you to join us. You listened in a little bit there on Dan's talk. What do you think about their service?
I want to hear what Dan is keeping secret from us, till the build time frame. That's what I want to hear about.
You even caught the hint. Oh, now I'm in trouble.
Oh yeah, well, the build in the 3 weeks. Yeah, it wasn't too hard for an old guy like me to figure that out. Yeah, well, and Magnus, I was in the background with Rick. I was bad mouthing you about how grown up you are now.
I was just carded at the liquor store today. I'm not even kidding.
I think I can speak for Dan and I that we haven't been carded in years.
Last time someone almost said something, I just went like this, and they said, "Oh, damn."
I said, "Thank you," probably.
Oh, wonderful. Well, we're going to let you run on with your day, Dan. You're in the morning time, so this is like morning for you, and you have a full day ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Magnus.
Thank you for being with us, Dan. Good to see you. Bye-bye. So now, Tim, it's just you and I. What's going on, sir?
What's going on? Well, It's another beautiful day here in Carlsbad, California, just north of San Diego. And that's the good news. The bad news is I'm stuck in this godforsaken home office like I have been for for over 2 years now, right?
Yeah.
So, life goes on. There's good news. There's bad news. It's all good. It's good.
We're starting to get back out there a little bit, though, right? I mean, we're starting to travel a little bit more.
Well, me and you are going to spend some quality time in, what is that, next week, 2 weeks?
Yeah. Right?
I'm excited. Honestly, I'm really excited. And Kelly is like ecstatic. That's my wife, 33 years, who you know so well. Yeah, we're flying out to Europe and doing your gig and doing a couple other conferences, some keynotes and
Definitely.
stuff. Yeah, it'll be
I can
fun.
tell
Yeah, that just getting outside, and I'm an outdoorsman, and just getting out and away from the stress of the pandemic is just fantastic. So I'm excited.
Yeah,
It's an arduous journey to get all the way from where I live to you to live.
for sure, for sure.
You almost could go the other way around the world from where I live on the West Coast.
Almost. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But
But it's good to have you guys back over in Europe, and I look so much forward to seeing you and of course your better half very much. So
much better half is what most people say.
much better half. Let's go with that. Yeah.
She's in the background here, and I said, whatever you do over the next hour, please keep your dog under control. Okay, if you.
Totally. All right. Well, so let's get on with it then. The show, as it is, and you're going to talk to us about AI. And I love the title of your talk. It literally very much just sells itself: the ethical dilemma of AI: save humanity or destroy it.
Yeah, I love this talk. I really do. It gets people thinking, and I've got some cool demos, and it makes many people who are not savvy to this world, it makes them go like, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, holy cow, we're saving lives with this stuff.
Exactly.
That's the point.
It's very cool. And so I'm going to kind of leave you to it, because I know you want to spend some time with your talk here and deliver for us. We're so happy to have you. And so I'm going to go away in a second and leave you to do your thing. You have the whole hour, but you can end towards there and give us 10 minutes to have a conversation afterwards.
Aren't you being polite? You and Rick, my dear friend Rick, and you said, Tim, you got 45 minutes. If you go over an hour, you're never working in this industry again. Isn't that what
pretty much?
Me?
Well, it's much more the case that Learn TV is going to go. You guys are not off. You're free to continue talking after that. But no one's going to be watching you.
Fair enough. I got it. So we should be fine. I did. Yeah. I timed it yesterday and again this morning. We should be fine.
Perfect. Wonderful. Well, I mean, take it away. The floor is yours.
I think you want me to share my screen, right?
Yes. And then
I'm sharing.
Rick is going to cue you up and all with fixing up.
It's giving me guidance.
And I will go away.
And I want to share. All right. I'll talk to you in a bit, Magnus. Thanks. Good to see you, buddy, even though it's virtual. I assume you're seeing my screen.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, then let's get rolling. Hello and welcome wherever you are. My name's Tim Huckabee, and as Magnus mentioned, this is technology talk, which focuses on the ethics that we have as developers, as technologists, and how much power we have because this world is moving so quickly. So there's my contact info. But you don't need to take screenshots or write it down or anything like that. On the very last slide, I'll have that stuff. And then I'll have a link for you to download, if you want to download this PowerPoint deck. I'm more than willing to give you this PowerPoint deck. There's a ton of links in it to the source code and the demos. And a lot of people use my slides in pitching their own organizations on, we need to do this stuff. So yeah. I've been doing this a long time. It's my honor to be here today, but I am comfortable in front of an audience, although honestly, I'd rather be in front of you in person, but even virtually, I'm comfortable in front of an audience. We're joking about the timing thing. I should come in timing just great, unless I tell Bill Gates stories. Then we may be late. I worked at Microsoft in the late 90s on the Windows NT server group. Believe it or not, that's how old I am. Great years there, and then founded a couple companies after that. So there's young, skinny Tim, top left, and to the right with Steve Ballmer, and then there's old Keynote Tim on the bottom. So here's what we're going to talk about today. We're also going to pose some interesting questions that don't have answers, as much as they generate opinions and discussion. This is the type of stuff you talk about in a bar, frankly. Uh, we'll talk about some of the good things and great things happening as a result of artificial intelligence, and we'll also talk about some of the bad things. We'll talk about how easy it is in becoming to develop, or how easy it is to develop solutions in AI and the complications therein with having it so easy to build AI complications. I'll do a lot of my focus on the computer vision part of AI because that's where my expertise lies. That's where my passion lies. And that's what I've been doing for the last decade. Um, but AI, the AI stack, if you could call it that, is broad. It's huge and it's growing. You saw Dan talk in the last talk about, just wait what's coming in the Azure portal. Well, those guys in Azure go so fast, I can't keep up with them. I assume it's even tricky for Rick and Magnus to keep up with those guys. They go so fast. And of course, if you know me, if you've seen me speak before, I can't just talk to slides, especially if I can't see you and your reaction. So I'll do 3 pretty compelling demos here. All right, let me plow through the obligatory about Tim Huckabee stuff quickly. You most likely don't know my name or the companies I founded. One of the reasons is because we built software for other companies for over close to 30 years. And because of that, unfortunately, most of the work we do is covered by NDA, very strict NDA. So I cannot talk about what we did in detail for most projects. We've built some really high-tech software for other companies. And I've been involved in doing this for almost 25 years. The client list is impressive, spanning a good portion of the Fortune 1000. There's a smattering of the ones I can mention, and they're grouped kind of sort of by industry. What we've done for most of these companies is way off limits to discuss. Being that said, we will discuss some really interesting stuff. Hello, slide deck. Why are you not moving? Oh, this is awesome. I have PowerPoint hung. There we go. PowerPoint's back. Wow. 30 years of Microsoft Office and PowerPoint still hangs. So here's a bunch of famous people using software we've built. We've been lucky to build a lot of software for broadcast television. We're 100 miles south of, or I'm 100 miles south of Los Angeles, Hollywood, and 30 miles north of the Mexican border if you're trying to figure out where I am. Anyways, a lot of broadcast TV is done in Los Angeles. You'll be familiar with this one. Everyone in the free world has seen this. This application is the ultimate in data visualization and content management. Over 250 million people at a time worldwide experience this piece of software during the United States presidential elections. Okay, let's jump in. From cancer research and detection to rare disease identification to machine learning on the human genome to COVID-19 detection and recognition, AI does save lives. It saves lives right now, and it's been saving lives for a year. I'm proud that I've been working in computer vision and 3D based solutions for solving cancer and many other diseases and syndromes for over a decade. Oh, PowerPoint is giving me fits. Bear with me. We may have to do this differently if PowerPoint doesn't behave. Bear with me. Come on, PowerPoint. Oh, why is there always something? Okay, hang on. Hang on here. Man, I am hung. Okay, let's, when you're hung, I'm a professional. Let's do a little demo here. How about that? There. Did I get it? Oh, sorry, guys. Bear with me. We're going to do this a little differently. I cannot get PowerPoint to advance.
Hey, man, this is not.
Yeah, sorry, my brilliantly awesome computer is totally hung.
It's okay. I mean, take it off and come back on again. That's we can talk for a bit.
I'm trying to kill PowerPoint. Hang on.
So while you're doing that, I can share with you that there's lots of stuff going on in GlobalAzure at the moment, and I don't mean for people to go away, but did you notice that we have, there we go, on screen now, there's like 443 speakers. They're delivering 438 sessions, and they're all part of like at least 60 almost communities across 6 continents for this event. And that is a pretty impressive number, considering that we're still, by and large, in a pandemic right now, which is terrible considering. but we are coming towards the end of that pandemic, and having these numbers during a pandemic just shows you how many people are interested in learning about technology and about the cloud and about Azure, right? Tim?
True that. All right, I'm back.
Yes.
I don't know what PowerPoint's deal is. So here, and this is ironic that you mentioned the pandemic. So early in the pandemic, we built software actually to identify COVID in X-rays, COVID-19. I can't do this demo because HIPAA's involved and blah 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 and la 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 la. But you can do it. The URL's in the slide, and again, you can download my slides at the end. This is another one of those projects of ethics I'm proud of. It's work done with the very same Microsoft Customvision API to recognize that I'm going to show you how to use later in this presentation. This research and proof of concept was published by a bunch of brilliant doctors and scientists. Oh, I don't know, a year and a half ago. And since it was the first in the space race to recognize COVID in X-rays, it got a ton of attention. Now check this out. This is the work we did for an ISV in face detection, not facial recognition, face detection, meaning we want to use artificial intelligence to identify all the faces in a frame of video. We called it the multi-scale face detector or something like that. If you think this through, it's a bit staggering. Remember that HD video is simply 30 pictures. We call pictures frames. So HD video is just 30 frames put together per second, 30 frames per second. I still haven't seen anything better than this for face detection. Even in Windows. Windows is not designed to look at multiple faces. It's just designed to grab the one that's in front of the computer to authenticate you. In this example, it's literally identified hundreds, if not thousands, of faces in one single picture. Now, it's not processing the face in any way. It's just detecting them. It's not doing the facial recognition or a demographic profile on the faces or anything like that. If you wanted to detect, then process each face identified in this frame of video with a trained AI algorithm and do it in real time, you'd need one heck of a powerful computer. But that's the type of power we're getting in our CPUs. And I'll talk in detail about that in a minute. And you need to do this in real time, practically at the speed of the camera. Face detection is the hard part, believe it or not. Face identification, frequently called facial recognition, is a solved problem. It has been solved for years. Oh my God, PowerPoint is just killing me. Oh, you know what? I could use touch. I'm a tactile reinforcement guy. Let me just use touch from here on in. Maybe it's my mouse that's killing me. Hey, what is fairly new to compute power that translates into machine learned models with accuracy? Let me explain that. Uh, uh, oh, this is interesting. I'm still having problems with PowerPoint. Okay, I got it. Wow, computer misbehaving today. So this is NIST, the National Institute for Standard Technology. Every 4 years, for the last many years, NIST has done a standardized testing on facial recognition algorithms. They do a lot more than that. This is a standardization group, very impressive group. The latest results were in 2018, 2019. That means they have one coming up this year, a new one. It's pretty exciting for a guy like me. And they include hundreds of facial recognition vendors. At least they did back in 2019. Let me talk you through interpreting the two of these results. I've pasted into the slide from the latest NIST testing. On the top is absolute accuracy. And look who won. Microsoft. For the first time in history, understand that NEC has dominated this testing forever. You're staring at 99.94, 99.81, and 99.73% accuracy in person identification and facial recognition. On the bottom is the gains in facial recognition accuracy since 2013. I mentioned NEC has won this thing forever. Well, since 2013, we pretty much jumped from 96 to 97% accuracy, which is pretty darn good, to 99% accuracy in facial identification. All righty, time for a demo. Let's see if PowerPoint will let me go. All right, I think I might have fixed PowerPoint, or it fixed itself. Let's do a demo. And that is here. All right, this is the Microsoft Intelligent Kiosk. I'm using the compiled version. I could just as easily run this out of Visual Studio, but talk about waiting. It's a beast of an application. As you saw a minute ago, this has a ton of demos in it. So yes, the source code is available and the link to it is in my slides. Let's see, I need to get back to I need to get back to there it is, the streaming technology, so that I can stop my webcam. There we go. So you no longer are seeing me. Perfect. My camera went off. Now let me do this. Magnus, you're going to have to tell me if you guys can see this. Oh no, the streaming technology has not let go of my camera. Nothing but technical problems here today. Okay. I'm gonna kill this and then I'm gonna start it again. Windows, actually Linux, all modern operating systems cannot handle sharing the camera. So that means I have, from the streaming technology we're using today, I have to turn off the camera and then I have to turn it back on so that my application can use it. But Magnus, I'm waiting for ideas here that this streaming technology is not letting go of my camera. Yeah, this is not happening. Darn it. I have a bunch of computer vision videos and I need to use the camera.
Okay. That I don't know, because if you stop your cam, which you have right now,
I
right?
could stop. I did stop cam, but I can see it hasn't let go of it yet.
Okay.
I could stop sharing and come back really quickly.
So tell you what we're going to do. We're going to remove you from the stream and put you back in again just very quickly.
Okay. I'll stop sharing then too.
And you're back, Tim.
Yeah, it hasn't let go of my camera.
So it's still using your camera. Okie dokie. Then
I could kill this. I could kill this. You know, it might be IE. I could quit this and then come back on a different. Come back again if that's okay.
So your friendly neighborhood producer is joining to be helpful here. I think, Tim, the issue is that because StreamYard's running in your browser, right? You joined the call. You said yes, you wanted to be able to use your camera. Just because you're turning it on and off inside this call doesn't mean it's letting go of the camera for your demo.
That's right.
I think Magnus is right. The only way to actually give it up is to close the browser tab, but that means you leave the call.
Okay, I could leave the call and jump right back in.
Give it a go if you like. Yeah.
But then in that case, Tim, do not activate your camera at all.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay.
Do it.
Beautiful. I'll be
We'll
back.
be right there. Rick and I will riff. So we will riff in the meantime.
Yes, so hey Magnus, I wasn't expecting to be on camera today, but okay, how you doing?
Wonderful. I'm doing great, thank you. So
you know, I said, Tim session will be absolutely fine. He's a seasoned pro. He's done this before. Of all the ones we're going to worry about, Tim's is going to be the last of it, right?
Well, the issue is, of course, like you say, and what Tim was saying as well, right? That Windows cannot share the camera.
Yeah.
And that is a severe limitation in scenarios like this. You cannot be on a call like this and show something from your camera in a different app.
Yeah. Unless you've got more than one camera connected, right?
Then you need to have more than one camera. Yeah.
And we've all got laptops. How many of us have got lots and lots of webcams connected?
Yeah, that could be the thing that we tell Tim when he comes back. If he has multiple cameras, then maybe he can join with a different laptop or something like that.
Indeed. So anyway, let's talk GlobalAzure for a few minutes while Tim sorts himself out. So you mentioned communities around the world. Let's give a shout out to David. Actually, he's one of the organizers because I think he was in Barcelona yesterday, wasn't he, for a live stream, and he's organizing a live event as well in Madrid, isn't he? The GlobalAzure Spain are doing 2 events this year.
And yes, they are. And what we see from some of these, not English languages, right? So vast majority of our content is in English language across the globe, because that is our common technology language. But for people who are Spanish speaking or German speaking, they're not always, super happy about using English for everything when they got great languages of their own. And what I love to see in here in GlobalAzure is that we have so much solid content from big community organizations, such as the Spanish one and the German one. That's the reason I brought those up, because I know that we have, pretty good coverage in German and in Spanish. And it's pretty impressive, I think, to see that these communities are everywhere. It's not only about English.
No. So on our session picker, if you look, you can filter by language. There are 14 different languages that speakers have submitted content in this year, and you can filter that down to your language of choice. And you can also, if you expand the communities tab there. So we've got communities on our map. They're the ones that are organizing events. And their sessions are plugged into our agenda, right? And their pennies on the map, because some of them are in person. Yay, in person. But some of our individual contributors are also associated with communities. Like Magnus, you run a user group, I think, in Malmo. You're involved with the Scanner group, yeah?
The Azure Skåne, which is our region, yeah.
So those speakers have put those communities in there as well. So you can see. Literally, I think we've got a good 100 or so, more than 100 speakers representing their communities. That looks like we have a Tim back. So
we do have Tim back, and we're going to give control back to Tim.
You can hear me, right, guys?
We can hear you, sir.
I'm back, but StreamYard will not let go of my camera.
Wow.
It's configured to grab the camera. And here we did a tech check yesterday. So I'm going to have to talk through a couple demos.
No worries. I'm gonna take
which is fine, and we'll be on time. I need to go faster.
That's okay, Tim. I'm going to be off screen again, so you can keep talking. Take it away.
All righty. So I just pimped this. Am I allowed to use that word? I just pimped this awesome demo. Am I sharing?
No, I shared my screen.
Yeah, I was screwing with. There we go. Now I'm sharing.
Yes, you are.
So I just pimped this awesome demo and told you can get this incredible source code because it does so much. So I'm just gonna have to quickly talk through what this does. I was gonna show you how good this application, which is called Intelligent Kiosk, does facial recognition, recognizes objects. I was going to walk around my home office, even from way back where the door is, which is 20 feet. It can still recognize me on just this tiny picture. It can figure me out and recognize me. It also tracks the male female thing, how old I am, and it does it with wild accuracy. And like the screenshot before, you put a number of people in this, and you're only limited by CPU cycles and network bandwidth, meaning this is an Azure demo or application. It's sending those frames up to the cloud, up to Azure to be processed, and the answer comes back. So this application actually does need some bandwidth, which leads to architectural discussions and issues with how you do these computer vision type demos. It does an emotional profile of me too, meaning happy, sad, anger. You can imagine that companies use this information where privacy law allows, and we'll talk about that too, to target advertising for you. So if you're in a grocery store and you're staring at a product and you're happy, or you're showing disdain or something, that actually affects targeted advertising. I'm ashamed to admit that I designed that particular piece of software, and there are companies using that kind of for bad. So let's keep going here. And hopefully we won't have any more technical issues. And then you could run that demo yourself. You'll be shocked at how good it is. Would you feel like your privacy law was invaded if you were analyzed by computer vision in public places, like I just talked about, like in retail in the middle? If would you be uncomfortable if the system knew that every Saturday at the grocery store you bought ice cream? Some people would be very uncomfortable with that. The retailer wouldn't know who you are. You would have a unique GUID or identifier. They would just know that every Saturday you're there and you buy that. In loyalty scenarios, they may know who you are. You may opt in, knowing or not knowing, to be recognized in retail, right? In the government, there are very few places in the world where there is no privacy law. Obviously, in Asia, and then a lot of Latin America, and people are very uncomfortable to have governmental entities looking at you. Now they argue that they're looking for the bad guy, and they are. Let's face it. That terrorism is real. They're looking for terrorists. But in many places, I can speak for privacy law around the world, but I'll just speak for the U.S. because we seem to be the most screwed up about it. We have federal privacy law, meaning at a United States level, and then we have state privacy law, meaning I'm in the state of California. It has its own privacy law that is often, I can tell you right now, it is in conflict with federal privacy law. And then because California is so screwed up, we also have civic-based or city-based privacy law. The city of San Francisco has privacy law that accidentally is so strict they're making it an unsafe place, meaning they've taken the tools for the police and authorities away to identify bad guys. I shouldn't say it out loud really, but if you were a bad guy, that's the city you would attack. It's really a shame. I'm sure they'll fix it soon. All right, enough about that. That's the ethical thing. So how did all this AI thing happen? Sure, there were significant achievements in software. I mean, machine learning is on this huge curve of productivity for the last, I don't know, 10 years. But really, this revolution came about, frankly and simply, because our CPUs just got more powerful, ridiculously powerful. And they continue to at a shocking pace. This is Dr. Gordon Moore, founder of Intel, one of my personal heroes. I've never met him. He's still with us. He's way up there. He's got to be over 90 by now. I'd love to meet this guy. It's not likely. He made a law, was a prediction, an uncanny prediction that has continued to be accurate for 58 years. He wrote an article in, I believe it was Popular Mechanics magazine, way back in 1965, and he noticed that we, as a technology world, had been doubling the amount of circuits we could install on a circuit board every 2 years, and that doubling had continued for almost 8 years. Well, this trend that he noticed. And by the way, this is when he was working for a camera company. This is way before he founded Intel. He noticed that it was the amount of circuits on the circuit boards were doubling every year. He later refined that to every 2 years. And the reason this is important is because Moore's law is still on track, and because software ultimately reflects hardware. So check this out. There's Moore's law as mapped, transistor count on the Y and then years on the X-axis. And I can't wait to get an updated version of this, because the last 2 years have been super interesting in terms of CPUs by a number of vendors, not just Intel, right? On the top left, that number is 50 trillion transistors crammed on the current Intel, the current gen Intel CPU. 50 trillion transistors. Okay, now this is super interesting. Here's Moore's law as mapped against the calculation speed of the brain. Top right, notice our current CPUs calculate at the speed of the brain of small mammals like rabbits, rodents, things like that. Top right, also notice that if Moore's law continues to execute, our CPUs will calculate at the speed of the human brain by 2025. It's 2022. Get your arms around that. That top left number, in case you didn't notice, that's 100 trillion calculations per second. Get your arms around that. Our CPUs in just 3 years, if Moore's law continues to execute like it has for the last 60 years, and there's no indication it won't, will calculate at 100 trillion calculations per second. Does this mean computers will be smarter than humans and the machines are taking over the world? No. It's just a prediction, a very likely prediction, that machines will be able to compute as quickly as the human brain. But what does that really mean? Here's another demo that I can't do because this streaming technology is taking hold of my camera and I can't do a computer vision demo for you. But here's another one, links in it so you can run it yourself and the source code of how to do this. But the point here in this demo, and I'm using this guy swimming in his example, and you can see the results are a person swimming in a pool, which is pretty impressive. I was going to throw a bunch of pictures at you, including some live pictures of me in my home office, and show you how good it does and how poorly it does in some scenarios at describing what is in an environment, what's in the picture. Ultimately, I always say on stage, ultimately, we're going to make, with computer vision technology and machine learning, we're going to be able to make a blind man see. And what does that mean? That means a blind man would wear glasses, and computer vision would be powerful enough. It is not right now, not even close, to describe everything around him. All right. Forget about the UI here. I mean, how in the world, the problem, of course, would be if machine learning could describe everything in front of a blind man, how would you get that information back to the brain? This is one of the very most intricate and not understood and amazing things in the human anatomy, the relationship between the eyes and the human brain and how quickly we can consume information. So forget about the UI. But by 2025, when we can do 100 million, what was that? 100 million, 100 trillion calculations per second, technically you could describe everything in a frame of video and do it in real time. That's super powerful. And real to well, we'll get to the how that could be good and bad here in a second. All right, so ethical violations. These are not new. These have been going on forever. To put some of the issues of AI in terms of privacy violations in context, realize these happened a decade ago. You have no idea, or maybe you do, what type of ethical violations are happening right now. A decade ago, Target did this brilliant machine learning project. Target is, if you're from Europe or another continent, Target is a U.S. based retailer, much like Walmart, if you know what Walmart is. They use machine learning to identify and then target advertising, physical advertising, like send you stuff in the mail towards pregnant customers. So they would recognize when a female was pregnant and then target advertise. A decade ago, it's famous that Apple put their secret tracking file on the phone so they could spam advertisements at you. They got caught red-handed doing that and paid gazillions of dollars of fine. Google, Facebook, many of these others created billion-dollar businesses on the unauthorized tracking of your web use, and they still do it. Amazon overcame the browser. This is one of my favorites. Flash. Flash had huge security holes in it, and Amazon exposed them and put a tracking piece of code in Flash so they could track you. And get that all of this is over a decade ago. Let's explore privacy a little bit further. Understand you guys out there are the technology elite. None of this is probably news to you. But you only represent a tiny portion of the world who is completely blind to this stuff. My wife, completely blind to this stuff. You know, there is a company who is an email provider that begins with a G in the Silicon Valley that most people are confident are using AI to scan the content of the emails going back and forth so that the advertising can be targeted at you when you get to a browser. You've seen that weird thing happen. Like, how in the world did they know I was interested in that fly fishing rod? That would be in my case because I'm a fly fishing. You've seen that weird type of stuff. How did they know that? It's because they're using really advanced AI. Your phone has a number of components to it that make it unique, which makes it really easy to do device IDs and fingerprinting. I think it's fascinating. In Europe, people tend to be a lot more privacy aware than they are in the U.S. We're kind of naive to this stuff, and that's why Amazon gives away an Alexa almost for free. Even we have an Alexa. Well, it's always listening. That's one of those Google Home like devices where it's listening to you, and you say, Alexa, turn my TV on. Well, Alexa has this beautiful interface because a lot of really brilliant ex-Microsoft people are working on Alexa. And within 10 minutes, I had trained Alexa to recognize my wife's dog barking. And the minute it's a puppy, and the minute it starts uncontrollably barking, Alexa says, Luna, that's the dog's name, is barking uncontrollably again. I did that in like 15 minutes. It's always listening. You can imagine if you're a retailer, how valuable it would be to listen to what, I don't know, you'd love to have but don't have the money for, right? Smart TVs, they're not only listening to you, but who was it that there's a major TV retailer that got caught actually looking at you too, which is crazy awful. All right, I can do this demo. Thank God. This will be first time in a long time that I've only done one demo at in a keynote or technical presentation. Okay, here we go. This is believe it or not, this is part of the Azure portal, but it has its own unique URL called Customvision Ai. This is the most poorly I think one of the most poorly named products in Microsoft. It's also one of the most powerful and awesome ones. Really, this should be called object identification and recognition, not custom vision. Object. So the next frontier, as I've alluded to, of computer vision is not recognizing humans or faces. So that problem's been solved. Body tracking, social distancing for COVID, that's all solved problems. Really easy to implement. The next generation of applications will be recognizing objects, and that means pointing your cell phone at a bird and having it tell you what type of bird it is. But it also is making a blind man see type stuff. So anyways, I've made this project, what was this, I don't know, last week before, called sodas. What's important here is historically in the machine learning world, and frankly it's still kind of true, you have to train hundreds of thousands of images. Notice that I've basically trained around 30 images of Coke cans and bottles and Pepsi cans and bottles. Okay. And I'll show you it and the reason I only use 30 is two reasons. Number one, to show how awesomely powerful this tech is. Because it's going to do an amazing job when I recognize a Coke or a Pepsi here in a minute. But then every picture, I have to trace a bounding box around, what's in the picture and then apply a tag to it. Make sense? So in this picture, that's the Coke. And in machine learning or in computer vision, images like this are not as powerful as images like this, because you want backgrounds and things like that. Because in machine learning for computer vision, what is not a Coke is almost as equally important as what is a Coke. Anyways, you give it a whole bunch of these pictures and you tag them, and then you just say go. I'm not going to do it here because what's going to happen is those wildly powerful computers that sit in these Azure data centers are going to crunch this and create the machine learning algorithm to recognize Cokes and Pepsis in about 60 seconds. I mean, there's some parameters you can throw at it, and it's configurable and things like that. And you could let it go for 2 hours if you want, and pay for that, obviously. But you don't want to stare at this thing crunch because I already crunched it for you. You want to see it in action. So I'm going to move over here to the performance tab, and this is fairly interesting because what it's telling us with that map metric, this green one, is that it's basically saying we're 86.4% effective with this particular machine learning algorithm that identifies Cokes and Pepsis. It could be better. You could get it close to 100% if I had more pictures of people holding Cokes or Cokes with different backgrounds or things like that. That's important. Precision means something like 7 out of 10 times we were right, meaning 70%, 70.6%. Recall is if I have 15 Cokes and Pepsis and we recognize 10 of them, then we have that's about 65%, I think. In this case, it's 85%. So it's if I have 12 Pepsis and we recognize 10 of them, that's 85.7% recall. Okay, makes sense. Now, predictions this is where you manage your pictures, meaning you continue refining the bounding boxes, and you train the thing, and it comes up with errors, and you get new pictures, and you do that here. I'm not going to do that here. But the endpoint is what you'd use in your application. This is just a REST API. This is super simple to put into production. Now you may be thinking, well, how much does this cost? This is free for developers, just like almost everything in the Microsoft world. Free for developers. If you put it in production, last time I looked at pricing, it was a $1.60 per 1,000 transactions. Think that through. $1.60 US per 1,000 transactions, which sounds ridiculously cheap. But if you think it through, and we've been bit by this before, or I've been bit by this before, if you have thousands of cameras at an event and they're doing 30 frames a second, if you add that all up and they're going 24/7, that adds up quickly. That adds up to hundreds of thousands of dollars per month. So your developers have to be careful in how you use this thing. But the point here is it's so simple to implement this REST API. So I'm not going to use my camera here. I'll use a static image and just pretend like it's a camera. That's why we could do this demo here. Even though the streaming software has got my camera. So we'll go at local files. Oh, I was practicing yesterday. So I like this one because it's an occluded picture. I don't know if you can see that because it's so small, but it's a Coke can with a polar bear on it. And it's sideways. So it's going to do its crunching, and check that out. It said with 98.8% confidence, that's a Coke can. I failed to mention this to you. Everything in computer vision comes with a confidence. There's no 100%. If it recognizes Tim Huckabee, like the demo I wanted to give to you, it would be about 98, 99% confident it's Tim Huckabee. All right, let's just do another one real quickly, and then we'll move on to something else. Let's do one. Oh, do I have? There's a tough picture. We should have less confidence on this. Yeah. Oh wait, we need to do here. That's pretty darn good. Considering everything in this picture. Now, it would be more impressive if this was a real background, not a white background. But it's saying I'm 87.8% confident that guy's holding a Coke can. That's pretty darn good. That's amazing. Again, this is just a REST API. Even I can implement a REST API, right? This is free for the developer. You could build an application in like 20 minutes with this tech to recognize when your kid comes home from school with the the camera you have on your front door, or something else like that. All right, let's get rolling here. We've got 12 minutes to plow through this stuff. All right, you want to know what scares me the most? Deep fakes. You guys know what deep fakes are? That's another oddly named thing. This is basically creating virtual humans. I have Carrie Fisher here from Star Wars because, excuse me, still early here. Had to take a drink of coffee. In the last Star Wars movie, they filmed it with Carrie Fisher in it as Princess Leia long after she had passed away. They did a deep fake and created her synthetically. Many people speculate that in Hollywood, we're not going to use highly trained actors in a decade from now, maybe even shorter than that. Why pay a beautiful, highly trained actor when you can make perfect human actors and have them be so real? So that's powerful, right? The problem is any 12-year-old can use this technology to simulate your voice and call your grandma and say, I need $20,000 immediately, and I need you to wire it to this account. And your grandma, in a virtual piece of software in AI, would interact and talk back and forth, and you'd be convinced, even I could be fooled by something like that, unless I started firing questions at it that it would overcome. Really, is this you, Grandma? What was your husband's name? That type of thing. That's scary. Deep fakes and the potential for bad people to do bad things is real. It's significant. And honestly, I don't know how we're gonna get over it, but we're gonna need to. All right. This is even more scary. This is unfortunately a part of our world, and this is not just a US thing. This is an international thing. There are crazy people all over the world. And it's just, when I watch the news, or Kelly and I watch the news each night, it just seems like every night or once a week there's some horrible random shooting. And let me tell you this, we're using AI to help. This project, I designed and built this machine learning model to recognize weapons in real time. So I'm proud of it. And it was not easy, and it's not perfect. And I can't do this demo because I don't own a gun. But here in Southern California, only bad guys own guns because we don't have hunting or anything like that. This is a beach town. But imagine a world where a weapon is recognized by computers in a crowd immediately and sends alerts to the authorities. Imagine, this running on 20-year-old surveillance cameras in a local grammar school. And the minute the knucklehead, this crazy guy, drives on the school property, opens his trunk, that camera catches it and alerts it. That in this world, they say every second counts. Well, if you save 10 seconds in recognizing a weapon, you could save a ton of lives. Here it is in action. And I don't know if you can see the resolution of that, but over that bounding box, it's saying, shoot, I can't even see the resolution of that. It's saying it's a rifle, and I'm 87% confident that's a rifle. And then here's an example of an alert it sent. This is a lot easier to read. I'm 90% confident that that's a pistol. By the way, see the red tip? That's my buddy Tony. The red tip on any gun means it's a toy. I don't know if that's a worldwide standard, but that's a US standard, to help the police from shooting people who are holding toy guns, right? Makes total sense. All right. So let's wrap this up. I'm going to make it, guys. As technologists, we have this ethical responsibility to push AI to places where it helps the world. I don't know if you've read these two famous books. They're quite good. They're quite interesting. Orwell and Huxley, they portray this dystopian view of the future of the world, this awful view of the world run by machines. I don't see it like that. AI has the power to be Big Brother, but it also has the power to save lives. Like any technology, us developers and us technologists have a duty to be responsible. We have a duty to spread the awareness of the ethics of AI. I cannot tell you probably the handful of times that I've built something that other companies have used for bad. And that's a bummer. Okay, so is AI or computer vision, is this a weapon or a lifesaver? I like this slide. I like to compare it to nuclear power. With nuclear power, we got the freaking microwave. How could you live without a microwave oven? We also have very efficient engines, propulsion for ships, submarines, etc. We have very efficient and inexpensive energy, but its byproducts are lethal to millions. And it also creates the world's most efficient weapon, which is being threatened in today's society. I can't believe in 2022 we are considering having to defend against nuclear weapons, but we are. AI, on the other side, it saves lives. It makes life easier. It automates menial tasks. That's kind of the bold promise of machine learning. The stuff that a human would just rather die than do because it's so menial, it does that for us, and it entertains us, like in the case of Carrie Fisher in Star Wars. But the negative side is it replaces low-skilled labor. And more significantly, it's a tool for bad guys. to take your money and commit fraud. And it's a tool for bad companies and bad governments to track you and invade your privacy. All right, let's wrap this up. In summary, with the great power of AI comes responsibility. And I'm talking to you developers. Machine learning is on this growth curve like a hockey stick in terms of performance and precision. There are many world-changing use cases for the good, and there's some bad ones too. Computer vision is powerful and it's easy to implement. The source code is out there to make this really easy. I mentioned the recognition of objects, and we're just in the infancy of this. But if you are into animals and you wanted to build a machine learning algorithm for your phone that recognizes the animals in your wilderness, that is so doable right now. And as Moore's law execute and our CPUs become powerful, and frankly our batteries keep up in our mobile phones, that's the big draw on a CPU. The battery tech has to keep up with our CPU power. Then you'll be able to do this type of stuff. Okay, I hope, barring all those technical problems, it's been a long time since I had so many technical problems. I hope you enjoyed that. If you want my deck, you can download it right here. And then if you want to contact me, there's my stuff. But that's it. That's all I got. Magnus?
Yes, sir. I'm back. Well, you can turn on your camera now again, I guess, so we can see each other.
My view of this is I'm seeing my camera as being on. So,
okay.
All right, let me turn it back on. I have to remember what browser I put it in. Hang on here.
That's okay.
While I do that, any questions or comments?
Well, I mean, the comments are that this stuff is mind blowing. I was just saying here on the chat behind the scenes that seriously, this Moore's law stuff, it is uncanny.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I've been working with Intel for excuse my language. I don't know, 7-8 years now directly. Yeah. And they have a computer vision technology, by the way, that runs on the edge. I showed you cloud-based. Microsoft's tech is cloud-based. They have it running on the CPU edge. It's called OpenVINO. I've done a number of projects in OpenVINO. But I get to sit in meetings where they talk about product planning, and it's like, what do you do with that CPU power? So normally, how are we doing? We got 3 minutes?
Yeah.
Normally, the question I get when I do this keynote or talk is, Tim, what do you think about quantum computing as it relates to this?
You're giving your own questions now. That's cool.
Well, I assume there's no questions, so I can provide my own questions.
Good.
And because we only had, an hour 45 minutes, I didn't put a slide up for quantum computing. I'll tell you right off, I am no expert at quantum computing. Right. I'm studying it, and frankly, it may be beyond me. It might be too much for me.
Maybe.
But in reality, it's hard for me to grasp that a 1 can change into a 0 or a 1 can change into a half. That's quantum computing, right? So in quantum computing tackles some methodical algorithms fairly easily. The famous one, of course, is it's going to break all our encryption, within, a couple of years. That has to do with CPU power, by the way. So all our encryption, the whole blockchain thing, the whole cryptocurrency, it falls apart unless we figure out how to overcome quantum. That's the reality. They're smart.
And we will. I'm sure we will.
And the human genome, it can map the human genome. Now, I haven't seen a lot yet with applying artificial intelligence to quantum computing.
And I'd love to keep talking with you all week long. And we're at the end of our live broadcast because Learn TV is going to kick us out. So
yeah, perfect. I got 30 seconds. So totally fun. See you in a couple weeks, buddy. Sorry for the technical details, but live and learn.
Thank you for being with us today, Tim, and delivering your talk about this ethics dilemma we stand before. Thank you so much for being with us. And everyone else, go back to our website, globalazure.net, and please continue watching wonderful, wonderful presentations from so many people around the globe today, this evening, and tomorrow as well, depending on time zones where you are. We're out. This is it.